Welcome to Infosec Decoded number 39, Whacked. And Alan's here with the story that gives us our title.
Sad news from the world of washed up former security vendor company founders. John McAfee, age 72, I believe, has been found dead in his prison cell in Spain on Wednesday. I'm not sure where to even begin to how to summarize John McAfee's life and what he meant to cybersecurity, the internet, and the world. I think he was good for a lot of entertainment for a number of years.
Yeah.
Although, by all accounts, he was a very troubled man and had a very difficult life, which I didn't know about actually until reading some of his obituaries. And of course, he had a number of legal problems over the years too, not least of which was the suspicion in the death of his next door neighbor in Belize, and back in 2012, I think it was.
Yeah.
He was never prosecuted for that. He was never charged with any crime.
Well,
However,
he fled.
he did flee Belize, yes, and he was in a Florida civil court held liable for that death. And so he was on the hook for over $30 million in a judgment, civil judgment. Of course, more recently, he had a number of problems with the IRS, and he was facing extradition to the US for tax fraud.
Yep. All the crypto money, which he paid no tax on and publicly bragged about this, daring them to do something about it.
Yes, the man had zero OPSEC.
No, you don't poke cops or the IRS in the face and say, yeah, I bet you won't do anything. This is a bad plan.
But what's even more surprising to me is that anybody would listen to John McAfee and give him money for his crypto promotions schemes and scams.
Well, I don't know, but I think he made a pile of money like everybody in crypto because crypto keeps going up. There are people like me that stay out because it makes no sense, but
Yes.
But other people who don't let that little trivial detail bother them have raked in a pile of money.
Yes. And it appears that he did do very well for himself. One way or another, he did make a lot of money, and not just with the sale of McAfee Associates back in the day.
Yeah, well, he was a wild man like Hunter Thompson,
Yes, he certainly
married the
was.
prostitute that came to kill him. And, he's an example of what you would do if nothing mattered at all. There's always one of them.
Yes.
I think Oscar Wilde was one a few generations ago. Every generation has a wild man. What if you just broke all the rules and nothing mattered?
I don't know if I'd compare John McAfee to Oscar Wilde, but yes, there aren't many like him, and there never will be.
Oh, I think there always will be a few like him. The people break all the rules and have a pretty good time for a while and then come to some disastrous crashing end.
Yeah, I was thinking after John McAfee's death, who are we left with? And Kim.com, I guess, but he's
Kim.com is one of them. And I think pretty much everybody in the Republican Party is over there now with their crazy conspiracy theories and religions and aliens from outer space or fixing the election and stuff. I think they're brewing up a pot of them. Matt Gaetz, for example.
Who?
Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, the Florida man with all the teenage prostitutes.
Oh, isn't it Getz?
Getz, I don't know how. Whatever it is, he's trying to be John McAfee.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I personally, I'm just waiting for Peter Norton to just bust out and become a wild man.
Well, anyway, I liked your tweet you found from a couple of years ago. John McAfee said, "I'll never commit suicide. If it's suicide, I was whacked." So that's why I figured that's it. And then he apparently really did set up some posthumous system to post a Q on his Instagram account after he was dead, which is a totally John McAfee thing to do, just to keep the pot at the boiling boil.
Yeah, and he got a tattoo and everything. And he made multiple tweets about he'll never kill himself because he likes it in prison. He's got friends and he likes it. So, or liked it, I should say.
It's totally like him to say all that and then kill That's right. It also, he's totally faked his death before. That was my first thought as well. Maybe.
Oh, that's right. He did, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's why it's
that was my first thought. That was my first thought too.
Yeah. But when you're in prison, it gets a little harder to do that stuff. But I remember. Anyway, that's all right. Anyway, then I got another one kind of like it with this Casper Snapchat. I didn't know this. There was this app you could put on your phone called Casper that would let you make copies of Snapchat pictures. And the whole point of Snapchat, I've never used it, but I understand, is the pictures only last for a few minutes and then they're gone. So you maintain privacy. So somebody put up an app called Casper that would make a permanent record of your pictures. But what nobody knew until recently, I think, is that it was not running on a server. It was running on a cluster of 30 jailbroken iPhone 5s. And he shows him how he set it up. He just connected these iPhone 5s, put them under remote control. Whenever you used the app, it would just tell this phone to take a snap of that and send it back to you. And that was enough to service an entire user base, 30 iPhone 5s, which I wouldn't have guessed. And he has pictures of him setting it up and upgrading from the old iPhone 4 cluster to the iPhone 5 cluster and videos of him jailbreaking them all. It really looks like a project any of us could do with like a few $1,000. Anyway, so
that's crazy.
And eventually Instagram got fed up with it and sent him a legal notice and he took it down. But the technology is interesting. Anyway, and Liz has got this, the cheerleader at the Supreme Court.
Yeah, so if anyone remembers, there was the story about a cheerleader who got sanctioned by her school for sending a Snapchat message with profanity in it. And I liked the way that they put it in the newspaper article. I thought that was pretty good. They said that basically this girl didn't make the cheerleading team, and so she sent out a text to a bunch of people, and it says, using a swear word 4 times, she objected to school, softball, cheer, and everything. As teenagers might do when they're 14,
And a lot of people, adults on the internet, like on Twitter too.
Yeah, like today when they're in their 40s. Excuse me, but the school tried to sanction her and punish her for this, and she took it to court and won. The Supreme Court actually said, no, you can't punish students for social media posts they make when they're not on school grounds. It's not okay. You're infringing upon their civil rights, which I agree with. But it was a sort of a murky ruling because some of the justices were dissenting, and leading the dissent, good old Clarence Thomas. And I think that's definitely sort of, I think that's a little dismaying that it wasn't just sort of a unanimous verdict here, but it's a good, I think it's good that we are occasionally revisiting this and reminding school administrators that they don't have totally unlimited power over students 24/7.
Or faculty.
As much as they might like it. Yeah.
Anyway, I remember when they wanted to kick me off Twitter, and I said, boy, that'll make a good headline. And they didn't have the guts to actually do it, but they tried. Anyway, so then Kaitlyn's got a Peloton.
Yes, we have some news about Peloton. Recode from Vox has a article by Sarah Morrison talking about how the Peloton had an issue with some safety features. Basically, they had to recall the Tread Plus.
Which because they're all dogs and children, yeah.
Right, because a child was pulled under, and unfortunately, and there were some other reports of pets and children also getting hurt by this treadmill. So in order to remediate this issue, this serious issue of people getting hurt on their treadmills, Peloton is now saying that the Just Run feature will now cost $40 a month. So if you want to use your treadmill to run on it for some reason, you now have to get a membership for the children.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has these pay features where you have like a environment you're running through, like a virtual environment, but there used to be the free feature where you just use it as an ordinary treadmill. You turn it on and just run. And I think that's the one that's harmful because that's the one that keeps you going when you step off.
Right. And right now, now they're saying you do need to pay the fee just to use that.
And they tried to say it's a technical limitation that forces them to charge you a pile of money for this. And I'm really not buying it.
Yeah, that's okay. So I'm being a bit facetious about it being for the children. Obviously, they could implement something that would allow you to use it without paying a $40 membership fee per month just to use your treadmill. And the article actually goes into a philosophical argument of, do we own what we buy nowadays?
Yeah.
Because when people bought this treadmill, they thought, well, I could always use it for running. But then suddenly there was a change of the terms of service. And now they're saying, no, you can't. You have to, you have to go through our membership and pay a monthly fee to use the treadmill for running.
Yeah.
So
now this is why Richard Stallman, speaking of wild men, gave his talk where he said he calls the Amazon Kindle the swindle. You don't really own those books. This is wrong. Anyway. Yeah. All right. And Irvin has got something about side-loading apps.
Apple is in a two-front war in the US and in the EU about its App Store. They released a 16-page document to push back on basically saying, don't make us sideload our apps into our thing because it's just going to make it as unsafe as Android.
Well, they're not wrong about that, but almost nobody ever sideloads anything.
Right, so they're fighting against a number of bills here in the U.S. against their App Store and basically all tech in general. But Apple is in a two-sided war.
Well, the Democrats said they would do antitrust and limit the App Store and other things, but as far as I can tell, the Democrats are incapable of actually accomplishing anything. So most likely it's all going to blow over, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely true. Everything Apple says is absolutely true if you replace cybersecurity concerns with Apple's bottom line.
Well, now there you go saying the quiet part out loud. It's about the children. It's saving the children.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, Apple is making
children being little Benjamins.
Yeah, but I mean, certainly, Elizabeth Warren is at the forefront of this. I mean, this is Apple's App Store is obviously a monopoly and an abusive monopoly, and logically should be limited by regulation. But I don't think the Democrats are capable of actually doing anything. But we'll see. They talk about it, but then I think they give up on everything and let Republicans filibuster it, so nothing's going to happen. Anyway,
right. Something might happen in the EU that then would make the US react.
Yeah, and perhaps in some future administration when the Democrats really have a stronger majority, they'll be able to do something, but I don't think anything's going to happen in the current situation. Anyway, Max, our guest visiting us, Max von Blankenberg, one of Irvin's assistants, is here to talk about Discord.
Yes, hello. So we have some news. Looks like the people uploading malware to package managers are at it again. A Discord stealing malware has invaded NPM package, Node Package Manager. It's used by JavaScript developers. These, I hear these attacks are becoming more common. Like back in February, the researcher found out that you can use dependency confusion to make someone automatically pull a malicious package from their package manager. But luckily, it looks like this malware doesn't do that. This malware is called Cursed Grabber, and it was uploaded in 3 different packages, 2 of which use what's the term? One of them uses brand jacking, which is, it just names it the same package as a legitimate brand.
Right.
And the other are or typo squatting, as it's called, is where you change Google to Goog-IE to make it look similar.
Yep.
So currently, the packages are gone now. They've been taken down or replaced. Anyway, these packages contain Discord malware, which what it specifically does is it steals tokens for users and bots, which of course allow people to control those bots. So that could be potentially very dangerous.
Yep. So a lot of familiar things like reusing cookies and, but a relatively harmless attack.
Yeah.
But it's all supply chain attacks, which is all the rage these days.
Mm-hmm. Getting a lot more popular.
Yeah. All right. And Alan's got another MITRE product, Defend.
Yeah, MITRE, the nonprofit organization.
Alan, your microphone is.
Yeah, your cell phone is causing interference with your
There you
mic.
go.
Oh, there you go.
Or maybe he's just gone entirely.
I turned off my mic.
Oh, it's better now.
Is it better? Okay.
Oh, it works without your mic. This is awesome.
I'm sorry?
It works without your mic. This is a whole new technological breakthrough.
Without my mic?
Are you using telepathy?
Maybe I should just mute myself permanently. That'll solve a lot of problems and more than one role I have in life.
Well,
anyway, yes. The MITRE organization, which is a nonprofit, has released a complement to its attack framework. It's a very popular attack framework, which is widely used for classifying various methods that attackers can use. They've released what's called the Defend. That's Defend spelled with a 3 to replace one of the E's. And it is a defensive matrix that maps to the attacker framework. And it's it essentially allows one to identify and plan countermeasures to various attack methods. And so I'm sure this is going to be very popular in defensive circles, and people are going to be using this for interview questions, no doubt, and also perhaps better to understand adversary behaviors and what can be done to defend against those. What kinds of countermeasures can be undertaken?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely sticking this in my Black Hat class. I already used the attack framework. I looked at it at first and it seemed daunting. And then I realized my students need to know all these terms and what they mean. And the same thing's true of these defensive terms.
Yes.
It's like a good list of flashcards. You should know what all this stuff is.
Yes, right. A list of flashcards. But it also has a nifty website with a lot of links on it. So it's pretty good. They've got a white paper too, in which they talk about, well, usual white paper topics. It seems like a good idea. You know, the attack framework's been out for 5 or 6 years now. I think it's high time that we have a defensive oriented matrix. So yeah, it's a good project.
Yeah. And the attack framework is integrated in almost every tool now. If you do some kind of scan for suspicious things in, I was doing it yesterday in one of the PE scanners, PE View will look for suspicious things in your file and say, this looks malicious. And then it will tell you which attack technique it's using.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a step towards security metrics. You can quantify what we've got. It's like the table of elements for security.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost as long.
Yes. And unfortunately, much more rapidly changing, which is why this is more messed up than chemistry. But anyway, this is the first step of science is taxonomy, where you just organize stuff into categories. And then perhaps you can like see patterns and start putting it under control. We're not to that step yet, but at least we're into sorting them into piles. Anyway, and then I have this all important message, which maybe I can play live. Let's see. Yeah, here we go.
July. I'm going to have a venue at the end of July. It's your job, everybody, to get the word out to the world. We're going to, every cyber guy that has credentials, they're called CISSP credentials. They're going to be there. Let's say I got 200 of them from around the country. I could be Democrats. It doesn't matter. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, this machine thing should, it was attacked by China. But anyway, we're bringing in all the cyber guys.
So there you go. We've all got to go. I've got a CISSP. I know Alan's got one. This is it. We got to forget about DEF CON and stuff. We got to go to this. This is our clear duty. This is the MyPillow guy. And he's got a meeting of all the CISSPs to get together to put Donald Trump back in the White House to prove that the election was hacked. So drop everything. We got to go. This is a clarion call to duty. So
It's the MyPillow guy?
it's the MyPillow guy. With
Wow.
it's yet another of his things. He's sure that the Supreme Court is going to tune in, and after they see the CISSPs prove that Donald Trump won, that'll be it, 9-0. They'll totally put Donald Trump back in and get rid of those Democrats that are cheating by getting Hugo Chavez or aliens or somebody hacking the election. So you could be in on the ground floor approving this all important conspiracy, and it's clearly more important than anything else you're doing.
Oh, I'd love to. I just don't have a CISSP.
Then you're nobody. You don't count. But you could get one. It's only a month away. Alan can tell you all you have to do is just take the test. You don't probably need to study or anything. It'll be easy.
I thought that was your joke, the CISSP thing, when I saw the headline. I didn't realize he'd actually called it out. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
He totally did. He had a video a while ago where he actually showed some guy, which I think is the Cyber Ninja guy, actually tried to tell him he found the evidence of the network PCAPs proving that the Chinese hacked the voting machines. And all he showed was like an ASCII database dump, a comma separated voter rolls in a hex viewer. And he said, these are PCAPs. And they proved the Chinese hacked the election. So pay me a pile of money.
Awesome.
So this is, by the way, a way that you can just go before some gullible fool who doesn't know anything and soak him for a pile of money, which I think is kind of the whole CISSP role. Gee, I might get in trouble for saying that. But anyway, that's a common interpretation, that's a common misunderstanding of what CISSPs and consultants do. Clearly, there's no truth in that. Anyway, let's go on to Liz, who may actually have articles that get that's trouble, like Lego bricks. Now that sounds harmless.
Now that we've cleared that misconception up, because that's clearly not the case. Disclaimer for ISC squared. This is just a cool little story, I thought, for anybody who's kind of curious or has kids. These researchers figured out how to upcycle old iPhone 5s into microscopes using like Lego bricks and a couple of very cheap acrylic lenses for the low power objective lenses, and using the lenses from the iPhone camera for the high power objective lenses. So I am all for stuff like this, where especially, a lot of school districts, unfortunately, San Francisco being one of them, are unable to provide microscopes for students to study with and learn with, and they are able to then build something really cheap out of readily available parts that students can use to learn bio with, which I think is really cool.
Are they too broke to get the microscopes, or do they have some?
Well, I mean, some places they are too broke or they're too remote. In San Francisco, I have to assume it's corruption and gross mismanagement that caused the schools to be a complete and total disaster. At least that's what I'm
getting controversial again.
I know, but in this case, there's I would really love to hear from any school administrators in San Francisco or school board members as to why I'm wrong. Please enlighten me.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't think you'll get any argument anyway. All right, and Kaitlyn has got robocalls. Boy, I would sure like it if they would get rid of them.
I would too. And hopefully this will be the case. CNET has an article written by Marguerite Reardon, I believe is her name, talking about something called STIR Shaken. So STIR stands for Secure Telephone Identity Revisited. And SHAKEN stands for signature-based handling of asserted information using tokens. Okay, well, that's a mouthful. What does it all mean? Well, basically, what the FCC wants to do, starting, I believe it's March 30th. Oh, sorry, June 30th, is so right around the corner, is to start authenticating caller ID, sort of similar to what we use for email with what's it called? DMARC.
SPF, DMARC and SPF.
Yes. But for caller ID. So moving forward, robocallers won't be able to spoof caller IDs from the local area. And as well as do a few other things to track and stop robocalls, which is really getting out of hand. Just this week, I had to deal with a social security scammer who didn't even try to get directly into my bank accounts. They just wanted to steal my identity and take my. They wanted me to send them my photo ID. Stuff. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So.
Yeah. I think, of course, when I read it, it'd be a very good idea if they would verify the caller ID, because that's used for a lot of things like 911. So in the long run, this may be good, but apparently a lot of this is already being implemented to some extent, and it's not stopping the robocalls.
Yeah, well, hopefully, like I said, June 30th will be the day that it'll be harder to do robocalls and scam calls, because that is the #1 complaint to the FCC at the moment, are these robocalls and scammers.
Yeah. All right. And Irvin wants to put multi-factor on your SSH, which sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think this was a great idea. So you can have keys, and Google released a tool that you can add a two-factor. So it gives you a QR code that you add into a TOTP, and you'll get a code that you can use just like logging into any other thing with two-factor.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I just say from my own experience, be careful when you do it. I've totally destroyed servers this way by trying to move them to certificate-based authentication and screwing it up. And now I'm locked on my own server and had to rebuild it. So, changing your authentication is something to be done cautiously.
Right.
So there's actually a lot you can do to secure an SSH server that nobody does. For example, you can add actual certificates to it that identify the server and its host. No one does that.
Right. Yeah, you can do it. I mean, all the technology is available. It's just so much easier to just use a password 123, and figure nobody will find it.
Yeah.
Just change the port number to 2222 and no one will get in.
Right.
Well, matter of fact, that'll stop most of the attacks, but it won't stop people for long. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, Max has got Sony.
Yeah, so new in the piracy wars. Sony wins a pirate site blocking order against the DNS resolver Quad 9. So this is news, continuing on. I think it was mentioned that they were, Sony had sent a site blocking order, but it wasn't successful. Well, now it's gone through. So in addition to this is Germany specifically, in addition to ISP blocking of pirate sites that they're able to get, they also got the DNS resolver Quad 9 to block access to a specific site. And I remember, I think you guys were talking about this. It's not the DNS resolver's job to worry about what sites people can go to.
Exactly. That's what I'm worried about. You ought to take this down at the source. If every intermediary needs to take it down, then every ISP would need to take it down. And, this is a bad precedent.
It's just another vector they're going through. And they actually have a defense here, because Quad 9 actually does block certain IPs on their own, and it's ones connected to malware and phishing sites to protect their users. So, then Sony comes in and says, well, look, you're not being totally neutral. You are blocking sites, so why aren't you blocking this? And
yeah, so obviously the way to make your expenses go down is to not block any of the malware, so you don't have to handle all these complaints.
Right.
Yeah, so you got another perverse incentive. punishing you for doing some good because that means you should do more good. Yeah.
Yeah. This all seems like a big game of whack-a-mole that the companies have been playing for decades, trying to get all the pirate sites down. And the best thing they can do is discourage people.
Yeah, well, I do understand. That's why I've been in this for years because I got involved with Cloudflare. I mean, I'm not directly involved, but I made friends with the CEO just because they were saying he should take everything down. And I was the guy saying, wait a minute, they're just an intermediary. They don't need to take things down because they're not the host. You should hit the source. And he liked my position. But anyway, now he's blocking stuff too. All the intermediaries are in fact blocking stuff, even though it was a can of worms that they tried to avoid opening. Anyway, so French spywares company has been indicted. Alan's got this one.
Yes. Some senior executives at a French spyware firm, formerly known as Amisys, now known as Nexa Technology, which I'd never heard of, have been indicted by a crimes against humanity and war crimes court in the European Union. For selling their surveillance software to Libya and Egypt. And this software was used by the Gaddafi government to find and imprison and torture political activists, essentially, and likewise in Egypt. And so there have been a number of companies that have engaged in sales of spyware to governments. NSO Group and Hacking Team come to mind. And they've managed to mostly escape prosecution, or at least the executives of those companies have managed to evade prosecution. But that ends now with this. And it's high time. It's really long overdue because these companies, in many ways, they're no different from, say, malware vendors. The difference is that they're selling their product to governments, repressive regimes, oftentimes. And unlike, say, ransomware gangs, which merely turn a profit, these spyware, nominally legal spyware companies, their products are being used for torturing dissidents, for capturing and torturing political dissidents. So I fail to see the difference really between malware and spyware, whether it's illegal or quote unquote legal. In fact, the legal in some ways is worse than the illegal. So this has been going on forever. The three, I'm sorry?
Yeah, this has been going on forever. I remember IBM sold their technology to South Africa to manage the racial policies.
Right. Or IBM also helped the Nazi government in Germany prior to World War II. But at any rate, yes, so these are just three executives for Nexa Technology. But and the indictment has only just been filed. So we'll see what becomes of this court case.
Yeah, the interesting thing is I wonder what law they broke, because I think in America, there's just a list of countries you can't sell stuff to. And if they're not on the list, it's okay.
Yeah.
So at least you know what you can get away with. And that seems only reasonable. They ought to make it very clear what the rules are. Anyway, then they're really building this. They're building a giant CO2 removal facility in Scotland, which is like a giant power plant, only instead of putting out fumes, it's sucking up the air and cleaning the carbon dioxide out of it and sticking it under the ocean in the form of some fixed like pellets or something. So, and then it needs a pile of power to run this plant. So this is like madness. We run fossil fuel plants belching junk into the air, and then we take more power to run an air cleaner to clean the entire air of the planet. This is total madness, but that's where they are. This kind of reminds me of other proposals to like try to adjust the Earth's orbit or to blast particles in the stratosphere to reflect more sunlight away. We're down to the madness where you have a disease, you take a drug that has a bad side effect, and now you take another drug to fix the side effect of the first drug. That's about where we are with regard to the climate. But anyway, I've heard people say in Europe that this is going to be what young people should get into. This is going to be the growth industry of the future, is carbon fixation. The way we have giant plants and oil pumps and everything now, we're going to have giant plants cleaning up the place. And that's where you'll find industry and jobs and everything. So that might well be true.
Yes. And speaking of, one of the other thing that they're doing is some companies are taking carbon out of their supply chain or factory, I should say, processes, and trying to use the carbon that they produce by producing other things and putting that carbon into other products. And one of the challenges is figuring out how to make that economically viable. And sometimes the government has to step in and artificially make things economically viable, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right, Liz, let's just go to the last one here, the internal code repo.
Yeah, so interesting story. A code repo with logins used by New York State's IT department was found exposed. Stuff like this happens all the time. They issued the typical bad corporate response that no information was out there, nothing was compromised, but that's not really true. And then they took the additional step of trying to blame it on their third-party vendor, which no one probably vetted at all and is an offshore company. And yet another example of why you don't want to outsource your security to shady offshore companies.
Well, I'll just tell you, a proper CISSP would blame the intern. Anyway.
Right.
All right, and Kaitlyn's got Windows 11.
Yes. So in keeping with Microsoft's history of releasing a good version of Windows and then a bad version and then a good version, Windows 11 seems to be keeping up this trend. So Windows 8 was, of course, the bad version, and Windows 10 was the good version. Windows 11 is going to take away an important feature that I use a lot, and a lot of people do too. So if you are running Windows 11 Home, you need a Microsoft account and an internet connection to get it all set up. This is terrible because I can tell you right now that the vast majority of my Windows installs are all on virtual machines, and I do not want to deal with Microsoft accounts and all this stuff when I'm setting up a virtual machine to like run one piece of software, analyze a piece of malware. But Microsoft, of course, is now saying, oh, you need to have it. Why? I don't know. It's Microsoft. They want to push their services so hard.
But to be, who would use the home version for that? I mean, I use the pro version for that.
And what pro versions do you, I mean, what pro features do you need for setting up a virtual machine?
The one you just explained. I need the pro feature where you don't need a stinking Microsoft account. Well,
okay, fair enough. But so, okay, maybe from now on, Home will be the new Microsoft's super budget version. Everyone should be moving over to Pro. But
in Windows 8, they had one below Home. I forget what it was called, Basic or something. Really, Vista or something.
Yeah, 7 had that too for like netbooks and stuff. And I think Home is going to become the new one if Microsoft keeps up these practices, because this is no bueno.
Last I heard, I didn't even know they still made Home. Like, who in the world would use Home? Pro is the real starting point, I think.
Well, that's what they put in consumer systems, is Home by default.
I kind of wonder if they're going to rip everybody off on the hardware requirements like they did with Windows Vista, where they told everybody 1 gig of RAM will be plenty. They manufactured all that stuff, and then they said, oh, actually you need 2. And Dell and everybody said, what? I just made millions of machines. What is this crap? So then they invented the Home version to pretend it would run with 1 gig. That was why they did it. They changed their mind right before the Christmas launch. They manufactured tons of hardware based on the specs Microsoft gave them, and then they tried to double the specs later. And all the hardware manufacturers said, wait. So they invented the Home version.
Yeah, I don't know for a fact, but I would guess that this has a whole lot to do with collecting telemetry data.
Well, yeah, and I'm in my role as the fascist. I think Microsoft has a point that 90% of home users really would rather be tied to a cloud account because they're going to lose their machine and forget their password and want a backup copy of all their stuff, just like iCloud. 90% of help tickets come from people who really should have had a cloud account, and then we wouldn't have to deal with all this nonsense. I think it's fair to say anybody that can't figure out how to hack past this should be on the home version. Anyway, so Irvin has determined that we're totally screwed, or somebody is.
For those who have the Western Digital My Book Live, it looks like somebody got into all those drives and started deleting data. Western Digital does not know how. They don't know what's happening there, but they just recommended everybody unplug your WD Live from the internet and wait for us to give you further instructions.
And these are network attached storage devices, right?
These are hard drives that have like a NIC built in to their little case.
And they're also an old version that's out of service anyway.
Yep, but people are gonna keep it running because if it works, they just keep it running.
Yeah, and I think I saw that they have like hard-coded credentials or something is probably what's going on.
That's probably what's going on.
Yeah, well, they just joined the long list of IoT devices with hard-coded credentials that get hacked in mass.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
And Max has got Gydra on the Game Boy.
Yeah, so this one's kind of fun. I throw it in here because I'm excited about it. Gydra, the disassembler that was open source disassembler made by the NSA, now has an update that adds a debugger function inside it. Now, this is more like a quality of life update because you can still use a debugger on the side, but all the paid disassemblers like IdaPro, they all have a built-in debugger, and so now we finally have a free version of that, and I think that's really cool. So I can go into Gydra, have my disassembly open, and I don't have to copy paste addresses in the code over to my other debugger and worry about the function call stack changing that. I could just set a breakpoint in Gydra and it works. And also, apparently it's not a built-in debugger. Like Gydra didn't code their own debugger. They just connect it to like GDB on a separate computer or something else. So you could be running this maybe on your production machine, and then to test the malware, you can put it on your expendable VM and still be using Gydra in your main space.
What's the Game Boy part of this?
Oh, I just found this article because it was showing it as an example. It's really the news I wanted to show.
Okay.
It looks like this person was using it to reverse engineer some cheat codes in the game.
Okay. And I see that article's from December of 20. So I guess that feature's been around for 6 months. Maybe it's more mature by now. Yeah, good. All right.
Yeah,
well, that's it for this one. And we'll be back on Tuesday. And we've got to rush off to another conference. Thanks, folks.